Hello everyone, and welcome to this Age of Alchemy battle report, where today we are going to be playing a 100 points game between the Cleansers of the World and the Spark of the Free People. We are going to be playing a sabotage game today. For the Cleansers of the World, we have an Alchemist with dagger, an Apprentice with basic weapon, an Marksperson with crossbow and dagger. We have a Noble with basic weapon, an ex-soldier with basic weapon, and a healer with staff. For the Spark of the Free People, we have an Alchemist with basic weapon, an Apprentice with basic weapon, 2 Pirates with basic weapon and pistol, a Brawler, and 2 Markspersons with bow and dagger. Before we set up for the game, my opponent is going to roll for their concoctions, and we'll put up on screen what they've got. Next, I will roll for my concoctions, and then we'll put up on the screen what we've got there. As we are playing an attacker-defender scenario in this case, it's actually quite important that you do see the roll-off to see who deploys first. So I've got a 6, my opponent also gets a 6, so we'll try that again. They can go first. 4, 3. So in that case, it will be me who is defending. So that is both of us deployed, with me deploying first and placing my objectives on my back line over here. I have placed 1 here, 1 over here, and 1 over here. And as we can see, I have my pirate and pirate over here, apprentice over here. Let me swing back over. The 2 Markspersons are over here. Brawler and Alchemist are hiding at the back. As for my opponent, they have decided that they're going to deploy all of their models in a short line on this one side here, looking to try and get nice and close. Start of turn 1, we roll for initiative. My opponent rolls a 4, I roll a 2, so I'll be going second with those 2 reaction tokens. So that's the end of turn 1 movement. My opponent has gone pretty aggressive up on this side, while keeping their crossbowmen stationary at the back there. Whereas for me, I have formed a shooting line up here, keeping my Brawler at the back for some counter charges, and then over here moved my pirate around, but also moving my pirate and apprentice this way so they can try and flank round and block my opponent. First bit of shooting from my opponent, in fact I think the only bit of shooting from my opponent, is going to be their crossbow is going to go after my Alchemist. It's 21 inches away, so it is long range, but this rooftop here doesn't actually give enough to give cover for this shot here, so it's just going to be the -1 for long range. And it's a Marksperson, so we'll re-roll that. It's a hit, my opponent's going to roll to wound, and it is a single wound. So my opponent and I have agreed that these are going to count as edges for potentially falling, so I've got to roll against my Alchemist's intelligence. Only thing that's a fail, so I'm going to have him, because he has to fall to the ground below, I'm going to have him fall to here. Now that, to the nearest inch measuring up, is 3 inches, so he's going to take a damage 3 hit, and he doesn't take a further wound, but he is okay. We discussed it with my opponent. It turns out that their Alchemist and Apprentice are not going to do any concoctions this turn. They're just a little bit too far away. So on my shooting, I'm going to have my Alchemist, who is going to use his heavy bullet, one of his number 3, and trace it all the way to, yep, it's with an 18, all the way to this model here, the ex-soldier. He is, however, has moved and is at more than half range for the weapon, so it's going to be -2. The Alchemist hits on a 2 normally, so this will go down to a 4. That was nowhere near the table. We'll try that again. Okay, so I just missed. For my next bit of shooting, after that basically whiffed and did nothing, I'm going to have my Marksperson here fire all the way over at this crossbow armed Marksperson on the other side. They don't get cover because of this dip cut out here, And I'm going to roll to see if I can hit. So it'll just be long range. That's a hit. See if I can wound. That's a critical wound at damage 3 on resistance 3. So my opponent's just going to pop 2 wounds onto them. And then also because they are easily within an inch of an edge there, they're going to have to roll to see if they fall as well, which they'll do on a 1. They do as well, so they will fall down here like so. Again, the height of these is, yeah, it's 3 inches to measuring and rounding up. So they're going to roll that dice. They're going to damage 3 hits, so it's 3 on 3, so we'll see what they roll. And unfortunately, they've put themselves out of the game. Oofed. Well, after that string of, I think we're going to call it luck, I'm going to have my other Marksperson fire at my opponent's ex-soldier. They're at long range, and they have moved, which I forgot to point out in the other Marksperson, but they got a 6 anyway. So this Marksperson down into this ex-soldier. Let's see if they can hit. No, they can't. So that is the end of the shooting phase, and as per normal in turn 1, there are no combats either. So we're going to skip the combat phase. Join us as we head into turn 2. Start of turn 2, we have initiative. No one needs to do determination yet. I got a 1, my opponent got a 1 as well. We'll try that again. They got a 4, I got a 4. We'll try that yet again. 6, 1, so I will go second with 1 reaction token, and my opponent will go first. So my opponent was just about to move their healer over here. My Marksperson up here is going to use this opportunity to react. So I've actually said to my opponent, we're going to do this once the healer has finished moving, and we discussed it beforehand that they're actually going to pop up behind these boxes here. Now, I can still see them, and they are now within 12 inches, but they will be getting cover, so it will be a 4 to hit in this case. No, I miss. So after that, we've come to the end of the movement phase for turn 2. My group over here, the Alchemist, Brawler, and 2 Markspersons, that's all collectively stayed still. And over here, my Apprentice and Pirate have come round this way to try and flank. Finally, my last model Pirate is staying over here by this objective. As for my opponent, they decided to change tact a little bit, and they've just gone for an aggressive charge down this alleyway on this side here. For my opponent's only bit of shooting this turn, it's going to be an concoction from their Alchemist, their number 6, which is the Purifier. Now they're going to measure a point within 12. We've already checked that they're going to put it right there, because with its 5-inch radius, if it goes off, it will get every single model near this building. It will get the 2 Markspersons, the Brawler, and the Alchemist themselves. So they're going to roll to see if it goes off first, which it does. Now they're going to roll. We'll do the Brawler first, see if they take a wound on a 5 or 6. They don't. Alchemist, they don't. Marksperson here does, and Marksperson here doesn't. Okay, so that wasn't the most effective, but it did cover quite an area, so we'll get that. Once again, because my Marksperson has taken a wound and is within range of, or within an inch of an edge, I'm going to roll. They're okay this time. Once again, my Alchemist is going to try firing a heavy bullet, and it's going to go into this ex-soldier yet again. Unfortunately, he is just out with 9, so my 2 to hit will go to a 3 to hit him. Well, at least he tried. Next bit of shooting. This Marksperson up here, the one that reacted, is going to fire at my opponent's healer. So they are within 12 inches, but they're getting soft cover, and they've already reacted, so that'll be on a 5. Reroll for Marksperson. That's a fail. This Marksperson over here is also within 12, hasn't reacted, and is getting light cover, a soft cover. So we're going to do the same, hitting on a 4 though. That's a hit. We'll roll to wound. That is a regular wound for the healer. So as with turn 1, we have nobody in range for combat, so we're just going to skip the combat phase for turn 2. Join us where we go into turn 3. Going into turn 3, once again, no determination rolls to be made, so we'll start off with initiative. My opponent gets a 3, I get a 4, so I'll be going first, and they'll be getting a reaction token. First bit of alchemy for myself, it's going to be a number 4 scatter bomb from my Alchemist, which I'm going to place just... I'm going to place it, yeah, just there. Roll to see if it goes off, which is on a 3+. It goes off. So models within 2 inches, which is just these two. The healer is just out. And they will take a damage 4 hit. So we're going to roll for the ex-soldier first of all. It's 4 on 4. Nothing. And the noble, nothing. Okay, that wasn't very good. Next bit of shooting, my Marksperson up here with the wound is going to fire down at my opponent's Apprentice, who is going to react. And I gather they're going to go and hide behind these barrels. Yes, they are. Still within 12, but they now have soft cover, so it's going to be hitting them on a 4. That's a hit. Roll to wound. That's not a wound. We're going to stay here for the moment because I'm actually then going to fire my other Marksperson into them as well. They do hit because it would only be 3 down to a 4. And they do wound, so they get a wound on the Apprentice. First bit of shooting from my opponent is actually going to be their healer is going to heal themselves. The next bit is my opponent's Alchemist is going to use a number 6, the Purifier, again. We were thinking to come from the Apprentice when they were back over here, but they have reacted. So instead, it's going to be from her, 12 inches, and it's going to go right there again. So my opponent's going to roll to see if it goes off on a 2+. It does. Now we've already worked it out, a bit obvious as well, is that it is going to get all 5 of my models huddled around this building. So let's start by rolling for the Marksperson. He doesn't take a wound. This Marksperson doesn't. This Brawler doesn't. My Apprentice, my Alchemist doesn't. And my Pirate at the back, no wounds at all amongst 5 models. Our Alchemy's been not great this game. Now into the combat phase. I have decided to not make any charge into combat because I'm actually doing quite well barricading this off at the moment. But my opponent has worked out that their ex-soldier here can actually move their full 6 inches and dash around just behind my Brawler. So it means that if they lose, they actually have to move this way and might be in range of another charge. But we'll see how this one gets on. So first of all, it's the attack from the ex-soldier. 1, hitting on a 3. It'll be wounding on a 3 because they are damage 4, resistance 3. They don't get a wound. I get my 2 attacks from the Brawler, hitting on 3s. Both hit. Wounding on 6s, however, because they're damage 2 to resistance 4. So that's 1 wound from my side. My opponent will be running away on a 3. And they do, so they get to back away 2 inches, which I'm gathering is going to be towards the objective. As for me, 4 inches. I'm going to go... Yeah, I'm just going to go sort of around there. I take their wound, and we end up like so. So with that, we come to the end of turn 3. That was the only charge for this entire combat phase, simply because it's for my opponent to get to the objective, and it's just for me to block it off. That's all for this turn, so join us next as we go into turn 4. Start of turn 4, we have, again, no determination rolls to make, so initiative. I get a 2, my opponent gets a 3, so I'll be going second and they'll go first. So we're just towards the end of my opponent's half of the move phase. They're going to move their ex-soldier back this way so they can get healed. I am going to react with my pirate, but I've said they're going to react and do this after they move. Now originally I said I was going to put them there, and my opponent's decided they're going to move back instead of moving around this way. So they're going to go back to about there, yeah, and then like so. Now I get to still fire at them. I'm within 8, but not within 4. They will not be getting the benefit of cover now because of where they moved, but it's still going to be a 5 to hit, which I don't get. So the only bit of shooting from my opponent is actually going to be number 5, which is the Path of Righteous Flame, and they're going to have it go this way. So it is 8 inches it goes, but it only really matters that it's getting these 2 here, in a straight line. So my opponent's going to roll to wound them now, because it just goes off straight away. It's damage 4, so we'll see what happens to the pirate. He takes a critical, and the apprentice takes nothing. So there we go. In this instance here, I know it's a flat board that we're playing on, but me and my opponent have decided that this model here could potentially fall into the water. If they do, they would take a wound and then get out. Now in this case, if they do fall in, because they're on 1 wound, that would be them gone. So let's see what happens. They are gone. They fall in, they take a wound, they're already on 2, so that's them out of the game. Last bit of my opponent's shooting this turn is their healer is going to heal this model here. So I'll take that wound away. In my shooting, I have decided that first of all, my 2 Markspersons here are going to fire into the Alchemist. Now, because I need both of them to hit and wound, it's just easier if we just roll it all at the same time. So these 2 here are not within 4, so we're hitting on 3s. I'll re-roll that one. Okay, so they both hit, and then we'll roll to wound. Ooh, that's a critical for 2 wounds and a regular wound, which puts my opponent on 3, with their Alchemist having 1 wound remaining. After that spectacular display, I'm actually going to use one of my steel bullets, which is the only steel bullet I've got, and I'm going to fire from my Apprentice into my opponent's Alchemist. I have moved, but they are within 4 inches, so this will be hitting on a 2, which it hits. It's damage 4 against resistance 3, and that is a critical, but it really doesn't matter. That is the last wound dealt, and that is the Alchemist gone. Last little bit of shooting. My pirate who reacted is going to fire over here at my opponent's ex-soldier, who is still not in cover, as we established earlier with the same shot. He will, however, be at range, so I'm going to be hitting on a 5. Okay, so I miss completely. My opponent's first charge is going to be this guy here. Their ex-soldier is going to charge my Alchemist. So they're just going to go straight in like so. That way they're not within an inch of my Brawler when they make the charge. Then they're going to roll to hit them on a 3. No, so I attack back, hitting on a 3. Which I do, wounding on a 5 or 6 because it's damage 3, resistance 4. I don't. I have lost, and with that, I haven't rolled high enough, so my opponent gets to attack me back. They fail to hit, so I fail to run away. Let's try this again. They hit, roll to wound. They wound with a critical, so that puts me down to 1 remaining as well. And I do escape. So I've worked out that I have to go 2 inches, which puts me back here. And my opponent's going to roll to see where they go. 6 inches. My opponent has actually worked out that the best thing for them, apart from me whacking their noble out the way, would be to go this way around here and actually end up just on the bridge over here. The last bit of charging for my opponent is going to be this way. They're going to charge their noble into this objective. He's then going to smash it, which removes it from play, and he doesn't move any further. That's it, he just stays there. For my charges, first of all, my pirate is going to charge into my opponent's noble. He's just going to go straight in like so. 1 attack hitting on a 4, which hits. Rolling to wound on a 5 or 6, which I do, so my opponent will take a wound and then get to attack me back. 1 attack hitting on a 3. Then rolling to wound, damage 4 against resistance 3. They don't, so they roll to run away on a 3+, which they do, so they back away 2 inches, like so. And then I'm going to roll a 1 inch, and I'm actually just going to go back like that. Next, my Brawler is going to charge, and he's actually going to use his full movement to lap all the way around my opponent's model, like so. He has 2 attacks, hitting on 3s, both hit. Wounding on 6s. Okay, so neither, because it was damage 2 against resistance 4. But my opponent gets to attack back. 1 attack. Hits on a 4. Roll to see if they can wound. They do, and they get a critical as well. So I've got to roll to back away, which I do. So I'm actually going to back away 2 inches like so. My opponent's going to roll. With those 6 inches, my opponent is actually going to go this way. They're going to go 2 inches into the window, and then they're going to go an inch on the other side, which we have measured up to here. Now, it might be rough ground, but they can get themselves just about in. So we are now at the end of turn 4. It's pretty much just all focused on this corner now as my opponent tries to go and get these 2 objectives over here. Join us as we go into turn 5. Start of turn 5, we have 1 determination roll to make for my opponent. Now, because their Alchemist is off the board, they will actually be rolling 2 dice and picking the lowest. So they've rolled a 1, but they do have a noble who is still on the field, so that is considered to be a fail, so they get to re-roll all of the test. It doesn't even matter. They've rolled a 1 again, so unfortunately that means they now have to go and remove a model from the field, which we've discussed this. It is the Apprentice, because between him and the noble, he is sadly not worth as much. Turn 5 initiative. My opponent gets a 1.
Of course.
I get a 2, so I'll be going first. They'll go second, and they'll get a reaction token. Here we are at the end of turn 5 movement phase. My opponent has moved their healer up to here. Their noble has hopped around here, and then their ex-soldier has headed over here. I have had my Alchemist up here, Pirate has popped up to here, the 2 Markspersons have moved into there, and then the Brawler and Apprentice are over here. First part of my shooting, I am going to use my Pirate here to shoot at my opponent's ex-soldier. They will be hitting on a 3 because they've moved, which they ignore, but they are super short range, so their 4 goes down to a 3. That's a hit. Roll to wound. That is a critical, but my opponent is an ex-soldier. They get to roll 2 dice, and for each 6 they ignore a wound. They don't ignore any of them, unfortunately, so we are going to put this marker over here. We did actually realise that my opponent here is within an inch of this ledge after taking the first few wounds, so they're going to roll their intelligence to see if they fall in. So they have intelligence of 3. They pass, so they're okay. Next, my Marksperson here, who dropped down, is going to shoot him as well. He is within 4 inches, so it will cancel out the move penalty, and my opponent's not getting any cover. So, unfortunately, we don't hit. Final bit of shooting from me is going to be my Alchemist. Yeah, actually, I'm going to throw it from the Apprentice. So, we'll measure 6 inches from her. Yes, I can put it where I want to, which is just here. And we'll see if that goes off on a 3+. It does. And hopefully, yep, my pirate is just out. So my opponent, only model is my opponent's ex-soldier. Well, it's a 1. So after all my shooting has been done, my opponent over here, we checked their healer is not actually in range of their noble, but they really needed to sort of press on into my lines, so they decided not to hang back to get the healing. After a bit of back and forth and deciding, I am going to have my Alchemist actually charge a couple of inches this way, up onto this, and then into an inch of my, just make base contact, so they're into an inch of them there. My opponent and I am going to fight over these barrels, in other words. I get 1 attack hitting on a 3, which fails to hit. My opponent gets 1 attack hitting on a 3, which hits, and then roll to see if they can get a wound. It does, so unfortunately that didn't go to plan, and I've lost my Alchemist. Now my opponent can roll to see where they go, but we've actually worked out it's better if they just stay put, because then they can charge this objective and get it straight away. With that, I am now going to charge my pirate, and he's going to basically do the same thing. He's just going to charge up here onto my opponent's ex-soldier. He has 1 attack hitting on a 4. Let's see if he can do it. That's a hit. Going to roll to see if we get a wound on a 5 or 6. No, so my opponent attacks back, hitting on a 3. No, but they have to roll to see if they run away on a 3+. They don't, so I get a free attack, which hits. And come on, I want that again. No, just shy, because my opponent is resistance 4. They do back away. So they're going to have to go, unfortunately, 2 inches this way. And I am going to capitalise on that by jumping down here so they can't get at the barrels this turn. Next, my Apprentice is going to charge, now that my opponent's ex-soldier is in range. They're going to charge this way. They have 1 attack with their basic weapon, hitting on a 3, which does, wounding on a 5 or 6. Oh, one shy again. So my opponent gets to attack back. Hitting on a 3. Yep, that's what they need. Rolling to wound. Unfortunately, they don't. On a 3+, they run away. They don't, so I get a free attack. Yep, and roll to wound. No, they get to run away again. They do. Unfortunately, though, there's nowhere they can go, so I'm going to roll to see what I get. I get a 2. I'm actually just going to back away an inch like so. So we keep an inch apart, like that. So my opponent has decided that in their combat phase, the noble here is going to try and blind charge into my marksperson, because he can't see them, but he can reach them. So on a 3 or more, that's their intelligence. Yep, they are okay, so they can run around like so. They were thinking of charging the barrels, but unfortunately the noble was just too far away. So we're going to roll to see what happens, see if they can hit with their 3. They hit, roll to wound. They don't get a wound, I'll attack back. I hit. I have a dagger, however, so this is going to be a 6 or nothing. No, so I'll try and run away, and I do. And the best I can do in this rough ground is back away there like so. Now, my opponent can either try and jump over there, or I think what they're going to do is roll. And with that 6 inches, I think they're actually going to throw themselves as far around the barrels as they can, which would be there. After a bit of debate, my opponent has decided not to charge with their ex-soldier, because they really want to try and keep them on the board. However, that brings us to the end of the turn. Join us as we will go into turn 6, which could potentially be the last turn of the game. We are now at the start of turn 6. My opponent is going to roll for their determination. They have 3 models out, and it's 2 dice pick the lowest. And they have rolled a 1, which means that there is no choice about it. It is the ex-soldier who is removed from play. Now we come to my determination. Again, I've lost my Alchemist, so it's going to be 2 dice pick the lowest. Yay, I roll a 1 as well. So, in fact, I roll the exact same result. So it is my Brawler who is taken off the table because he had 2 wounds. Now that that's out of the way and we both failed quite spectacularly, it is time for initiative. So my opponent's going to roll, gets a 2. I get a 5, so my opponent will be going second with a reaction token, and I'll be going first. So we come to the end of the movement phase. My force pretty much locked down this barrel here. My opponent moved their healer up and around here, and then they charge their noble toward these boxes over here. First bit of shooting, my pirate, get the right words right. My pirate is going to shoot my opponent's noble, but before I do any measuring, silly me, my opponent is going to react, and they're going to use that 3 inches to hop behind these boxes here. Okay, and in that case, I'm unable to hit them now because it's more than 8 inches away. However, we've already worked this out. My Marksperson, who is just within, by my opponent staying there and not within an inch of that, is going to take a shot. But with range, well, no, not with range. With cover and with movement, it's going to be on a 5. No, that's not enough. For my opponent's half of the shooting phase, they actually don't have any models left able to shoot or do something. The healer is not within range of anyone who's wounded, and this noble doesn't have a shooting weapon. In the case of combats as well, when we move on to my part, I'm not going to move here because I can't reach him, but at the same time, I'm not going to charge the healer because then there's an opportunity that he could actually sprint round me and get to these barrels. So the only charging in turn 6 is my opponent's healer is going to charge into my models. For my opponent's healer, he is going to rush underneath here and charge into my Marksperson. Has 1 attack, hitting on a 5 because it is a healer. He doesn't hit, I'll retaliate, hitting on a 4. I do. However, because it's a dagger and he has a staff, it will be a 6 to get a wound here, which I don't. So I'll be running away, which I do, and I'm going to use that to back into the barrels, simply just so they're more protected. My opponent's going to roll 6. I'm guessing because of how we're stood, the best they're probably going to do is just move closer towards me to try and block me off next turn, if there is a next turn. Quick bit at the end of the combat phase, or last charge of the combat phase, my opponent's noble charges this and removes this objective from play. With that, we come to the end of turn 6, which means we do have to roll a dice to see if it continues. On a 4, it does, so we will go into turn 7. Start of turn 7, my opponent again has 2 dice to roll because their Alchemist is off, and see what they get for their determination. Ooh, and unfortunately that 3 means that it is their noble who will be joining them. For my determination, I again have to roll 2 dice because my Alchemist is off the field. I roll enough that even with the lowest result, I'm not losing a model. After that, we move on to turn 7 initiative. I rolled a 1, my opponent also rolled a 1, so we'll give that another try. I rolled a 2, my opponent rolled a 2, we'll give that a 3rd try. I rolled a 6, my opponent rolls a 2, so I'll be going first and they'll be going second with 2 tokens. With me going first in turn 7, my movement is like this to cover the objective. My opponent has actually decided what they would do is they would move themselves 6 inches back over to here, and then the first model that tries to shoot at them, they would just use a reaction and go and hide behind the building anyway. Now this might seem a bit cowardice, but actually in reality, my opponent currently has a draw and models on the table, so if they survive the rest of this turn, it would be a guaranteed draw anyway. So with that, we actually end the game, and it is a draw to both players. And here we are at the end of another surprisingly exciting Age of Alchemy battle report. After the first turn, I honestly thought I kind of had it in the bag, and then my opponent really... Okay, they failed determination a couple of times, but they really pushed hard to make the most of their opportunities. And in this case, again, as with other games, the healer did surprisingly well at surviving. This is all that's left, my opponent with a healer, me with my Apprentice, my Markspersons, and my Pirate. As you can see, it was... My opponent destroyed 2 objectives of the 3. As stated in the rules, that is a draw for them. Not really much else to say. As you saw, it was quite a fun and entertaining battle report. It just falls to me to do the usual thank you very much for watching. If you would like to get access to the rules, or you would like to support the channel in making videos, please head to our Patreon link, which will be in the description below and usually at the front in a card. It will get you access to additional videos. In the case of some of the other tiers, it will get access to the rules. And then finally, it will also get you your name in the start of every battle report video from whence you subscribe. So if you were to subscribe after this one, you would appear in the next video. So once again, thank you very much for watching, and we will see you in the next battle report.